I apologize.
You want me to start? I can start over.
Okay, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Get a do-over. Right, calling to order the Clark County Clean Water Commission for Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. Well, we'll start with the call to order. I am Matt Jones, present. Going down the list, Robert/Bob.
Present.
Brendan has confirmed that he will not be here. Ted? Not present in the room. I don't see Ted online. Roger?
Here, thank you.
Jeff?
Present.
Sandra has confirmed that she won't be here. I do not see her in the room or online. Kate?
I saw her email. It said she wasn't.
Right, she said she won't be here. Yep. Kate is Kate, correct? Not
yes.
Katie. Kate.
Present.
Yes. Kate. And Josh?
Present.
All right. Let's see, proceeding here. So we have roll call. Public. Any public comment that we know about, Brent?
As of 3 o'clock today, there was no public comment.
Okay. Looking, we should be, I don't see approval of the minutes on the agenda, so we need to do that first before we proceed. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Has anybody, I should say, has anybody had the chance to look at the minutes? Maybe rephrase my question. Brent, is there a possibility we could bring those up? I was going to say quickly, but just bringing them up would be fine.
Let's see.
Okay, all right. And let's show that Ted is present. Entered the room. Hi, Ted, we're just getting started.
1 second.
Oh, I see it is. Action B, approved February 1st, meeting summary.
Oh, she said.
Yeah, she sent it right after 10:47.
Okay. Are they, oh, I have to, even though I'm sharing.
Make this complicated.
Yeah, I apologize. Oh, you're right. Thank you.
Okay, all right, so this is our meeting summary from our last meeting, February 1st, which we need to review and approve in some manner.
Okay. I don't know how.
Yeah, maybe if, I don't know if anybody has a preference, maybe, Brent, if you just kind of slowly scroll.
Yeah, I don't think I can reduce it anymore.
That's fine.
I mean, I can, but I don't think
That's
I can
fine.
read it.
And then there's those people that have horrible eyes.
That's why I made sure to bring my glasses. I knew there's a strong possibility there would be some screen stuff.
Let me know if I need to back up.
Okay. Anybody speak up if there's any, offer Brent any guidance or?
On Clean Water Division overview, the third bullet starts with Jeff
okay.
Schnabel. I think info structure, I think it should be infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So under bullet 3, presentation discussion, or header 3, sub-bullet number 3, starting with Jeff, info structure should be changed to infrastructure. Thanks, Jeff.
I'm posting
Good eyes.
his comments in this file.
That's great, yeah. Okay. Okay.
In the section coming up on education, I don't have great eyes, I just have to read this.
No, please, yeah, please.
On Eric's section, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not K-Woo, it's K-Boo.
You know, I was gonna look at that. I'm not sure.
I've never heard of a K-Woo. I tried looking it
Oh,
up.
for the radio station?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be K-Boo. It's not K-Boo either, though.
Oh, it's not?
Oh, okay.
If it's the Pacifica radio network, then it would be Cable, because that's the local member of the.
What I thought I heard in the last meeting was cable. I don't know what else it
Well, I
was.
wasn't sure if it was, oh, yeah, okay, so maybe we'll be playing on KPOO, yeah, maybe
Okay.
so, yeah.
Yeah, and that should, if it's what I'm thinking, that should be the Pacifica.
Yeah,
With the
the actual radio station that I was interviewed by is an affiliate, and that was actually KXCR. But I think they syndicate with cable.
Okay.
A bunch of independent radio stations that work together.
Was there somewhere I had Pacific Radio Network, was there?
It should be Pacifica, just add an A to the end.
Okay. Right.
I'm old and my computer remembers that.
Everybody good on that page?
Any comments? Jeff?
No.
You're doing so-
I'm done.
You're helping us out
I'm
so
done.
far. Right, elections. Okay, all right. Okay. Any motions to pass as amended?
That feels approved.
Approved, thank you, yep.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Any abstaining? No? Any abstentions? No? All right. Minutes from February 1st are approved. Okay, so I see next to the public comments. Brent, just, you said there were no public comments, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. We are going up to our limited clean water division updates. This is somewhat of a new item on the agenda in the form that they are limited. So you saw, or at least I shouldn't say you saw, but in your packets are the both Brent and Eric submitted a very brief report. So we're just trying to cut the time down on those a little bit to make sure that we have time to finish all of our commission business. So Brent, thanks. I did see your comments. Anything to add, or is there any questions of Brent from the group? Yeah, Brent, anything you wanted to clarify or add?
So you know what my situation is. I'm now the land use manager and wetland and habitat manager in community development, which is a permanent position. And so my tenure as interim clean water is going to end at the end of June, regardless of what's happening with the recruitment. But Ken later, the public works director, said that he was expecting to be able to post the recruitment later this week or early next week for the division manager.
Why is it taking such a long time?
Yeah, I thought that was done.
Well, the issue is really the management team's capacity to do recruitments. They've been trying to recruit a deputy director and an office manager, have been the two big ones, and what they've been finding is if they don't have enough bandwidth to focus on active recruitments, that they drag out too long and they lose candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So they made the decision to not release this opening until they were complete with one of the other active openings, which they were wrapping up this week. So that's how it was put to me.
All right, thanks, that answers a question. The question I had, so is my assumption correct in that the hope is that when you leave, somebody will be stepping in right about the same time or soon thereafter? That's the hope?
That is the hope. Yes.
Okay.
And I have assured Ken that if there is a time gap, that I will make myself available to help with transition.
Okay.
Are they,
when that's needed.
are they looking for an internal hire or an external?
I'm assuming it's gonna be external because, I mean, they have open management positions in Public Works that they've had a hard time filling, so I don't expect that they're gonna be looking for an internal candidate.
Okay.
So we get to break in a newbie.
That doesn't mean it can be an
That
internal
doesn't mean an
candidate,
internal candidate can apply.
just not an internal only recruit.
Right.
Correct. Because I think that probably some of the folks that, the management staff might wish would do it have already indicated in the past that they aren't interested, so.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions for Brent? All right, thanks, Brent. Eric, saw your piece as well. Anything to add?
I guess something to add that I won't be at the Clark Public Utilities Earth Day Fest. They're not having an outreach component this year. They're just doing a volunteer planting. So that didn't afford itself.
Okay.
Opportunity there. And then for I saw that the backyard habitat certification, that is, I think, getting routed for signatures this week, so that should be executed.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Eric?
Are you doing anything on Earth Day?
Well, that was going to be the CPU Earth Day Fest. So we don't have another commitment at this point for that.
Okay.
Are they having problems ramping back up?
You know, I think that, Jeff Whitler
Yes.
is not with CPU anymore. Maddie Lloyd, who was the stream team coordinator prior, is also not. So we've got a couple new people there. I think they just said, well, you know, we're going to launch this event again.
Gotcha.
We're going to scale it back a little bit.
Gotcha.
See what they do next year.
Okay. Other questions for Eric? All right, great. Thanks, Eric. And thanks, Brent and Eric, for submitting the stuff ahead of time for us. Really appreciate it. And then, Eric, as always, you're welcome to stay. I know you probably have other places you would need to be. That's great. Appreciate you showing up this evening. Next is our staff liaison report from Alice. So I don't know if we just, is there one?
I did not see
one. Okay.
from Alice.
Okay. All right. So I guess we can move from that unless there's any comments related to that or questions if we need for follow-up from Alice or.
I can ask Alice to provide you with any updates she has when she's back at work and just do that by email.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Brent. All right. Moving to the next item. Under our unfinished business actions, the approval of the 2022 annual report. I did get a chance to read it on my phone, so it was a little small, so I could definitely make a mistake there. Jeff, I'm looking at you. Sounds like you read a lot of stuff.
I went through it.
So, Brent, maybe if we could bring that up for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it's going to make.
I know it just came in this afternoon, so.
I haven't seen it.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just trying to get a sense of how to proceed here. So.
I hate to say this, but could we table this? Because I think the annual report is something we all need to
digest,
take time with and digest, because that's the only way we're going to know what's what. I don't know how critical it is time-wise.
So, and I'm certainly interested in everyone's thoughts here. Here's my take, for better or worse. I mean, we're already past the first quarter, which is a little troublesome for me about the annual report. So I don't see it as a time issue. I know the council expects something. I'm not sure they're losing sleep over not getting this.
No, they're not really afraid. I think there's plenty of other things on their plate.
Thoughts from the rest of the group? Bob, you look like you're ready to.
Well, my view would be too that tabling would probably be appropriate and at least give us all the time to review this, and I think we should all have an opportunity to make input if indeed there's things we'd like
Okay,
to see.
okay, yeah. Yeah, and one concern I also have is that Brendan is not here, and he's a signatory on this, at least as listed. We can certainly change that, but this report was under for last year. Other thoughts? One way?
I'm fine with tabling it.
Okay.
I did read it this afternoon when I got
Okay.
it, but I'm fine with tabling it.
Okay. Does anybody have any issue with tabling it? Okay. I'm fine
The
with
only comment is what Alice said about it is greatly reduced from prior years is very true. It is much, much shorter.
Yeah, I think the condensing it was a little more focused and sort of got rid of, the stuff that I don't think anybody really was concerned about.
Some of the details that need to be in there, she
Yep.
definitely got rid of.
Yeah, I agree, thank you. Okay, so let's, let the record show that we're gonna table this for our next meeting. So if everybody, before the next meeting, could have a chance to go over that and come with any comments or edits that you have. Okay, that was easy. All right, now for the harder one. I'm not sure how quickly this one will go. Role of the commission, and I'm going to rely heavily here on Bob to back me up here. We started this conversation at our last meeting, and so moving forward, there's definitely a lot of discussion. I think it warrants having a lot of discussion about what the role of this commission should be. Some people have been on this commission longer than others, so I think that we're at a good point in time to at least have this discussion. You know, I'm trying to think who was, I think Josh, you're the only one.
Am I the oldest?
I think you are the oldest one present as far as tenure on the commission.
How long have you been on the commission?
18,
Okay.
maybe 19.
Yeah, I think I came in, I don't know, 19, yeah, after you for sure. So, but we did our strategic plan, so I think you're the only one here who, you know, we talked about submission and values, but maybe talk about what our role is moving forward. Thanks for bringing this up, Brent. So here's, I don't know if anybody's ever had the opportunity to review this. There definitely is some dated language in there, but this is the current county code for the commission and what we are charged with. And in the email that you got today from Alice, there was some draft language, and Brent, you'll have to speak to.
Yeah, that was drafted by Justin.
Oh, okay.
In 2021.
Okay, interesting.
It's been sitting, so I have not done anything extra additional with it. And there isn't any plan or action in place to start moving forward with a revision. I think when that occurs, the commission should be part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
But we would kick that process off with a work session with council to discuss the proposed changes. And at that point, I think prior to that work session, we would want input from the commission and possibly even participation from the commission in the work session.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably not something that's going to get started in my tenure.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
This is the paperwork that goes behind it, but changing or modifying the rule of the commission is something we can do now, or is it something that needs to wait?
Well, I think you can certainly come up with a concept of where you would like the commission's role to be, but then the next step would be to bring that forward to the county manager and the council, because it's really their decision as to what the purpose of the body is. And quite frankly, it's probably not even on their radar that there's even, problems with, a disconnect between the code and, what the role is. So, this code was written in 1999, when the first clean water fee was put into place, and it was primarily envisioned as a public outreach and engagement tool for the fee process. And at the time also, there was a lot more uncertainty in what the NPDS permit required. There was more discretion on the county's end of things in implementing that permit. So there was also envisioned a role for the commission to advise the county on how to do that. As time has moved on, the permit has become extremely prescriptive, and we have very little discretion in how we comply with the permit now. So that role is really not, really not appropriate anymore. And so that language in there is, essentially it's just kind of gone by the wayside.
So, Brent, let me ask you specifically, and when we're talking about language, I'm looking at the current code, and just for the recording and anybody that might be listening online, that's County Code 13.30A.040 Clean Water Commission. The specific language that I'm questioning, giving your statement about the permit being very prescriptive, and I saw that it was removed from, now that I see Justin's drafted language, I have to find it again, I'm looking on my phone here. So it starts in the midway through in the sentence that in order to make an annual report to the Board of County Commissioners, again, there's some dated language, but the commission, this is the piece I'm questioning, the commission shall establish the criteria for evaluating the effectiveness of the program and set forth the criteria in the annual report. So, I mean, that seems to me, I take that charge as pretty lofty for evaluating the effectiveness of any program. To me, that conjures up all sorts of language and tasks and things we need to do with data collection mechanisms and so on and so forth. So am I to understand that that would not be relevant anymore given the permit?
Yes, because it's very prescriptive. We have a very strict annual reporting requirement, performance to ecology. And, we have a stormwater management plan that we have to update every year and get ecology's blessing on. So ecology is essentially providing that oversight function under the permit.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? I mean, to me, that's a pretty significant removal, but.
I understand the structure or the direction towards fees and the need to update and modify the code to adjust to that, and that seems to have been the focus. But when I read this, to me, it's also the part of the commission's job, and I kind of saw it as twofold. One was to sort of review and suggest improvements to the division's operation when and where appropriate, not limited to fee structures. And the other was sort of a broader scale charge to look to the health and well-being of the watersheds of Clark County. And so when I kind of simplify this, the fee structure isn't the focus for me, probably because it's no longer the focus for almost anybody. It's all set in stone. But what the commission's supposed to do, in my mind anyway, is also kind of laid out here in that sort of review and support to the extent we can, and to provide recommendations back to the division if we see ways in which their operations could be improved to better ensure the watersheds in the county. And so I guess in my mind, it's a bit broader perspective. Maybe I'm reading things into this code that aren't intended.
And I think that's a conversation that needs to occur with the council, because the clean water fee and the clean water fund is restricted to permit compliance actions. So that does include outreach and education. It includes our operations. It includes our capital program. So there is certainly a watershed role in there, but there's limitations on the scope of that role, because the county's permit does not apply to all parts of the county, or even, has some application in almost every watershed, I'm sure, but, you know, it's really focused on the MS4, which is our, you know, connected stormwater infrastructure system. So, anything that's outside of that is not really, we are pretty limited in how we can spend clean water funds. So if the council wants this body to provide recommendations about watershed issues beyond that scope, they could certainly ask you to do that, but we would probably have to talk about, you know, how we make sure the funding line is maintained where it legally needs to be maintained.
I don't want to digress, but how, through this process, does coordination between all of the jurisdictions within the county occur? You've got multiple cities and the county, and how does that coordination reflect our role as a commission that is looking county-wide at what's going on in water?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, we do have, you know, we have periodic meetings with other permittees in the county as well as beyond the county to talk about, you know, about permit issues. You know, and part of the challenge there is we're a phase 1 permittee. There are phase 2 permittees that have different permit requirements. So we do, you know, we have that coordination. We also have partnerships for a lot in, you know, the outreach realm of things. And, you know, I certainly, you know, think that there's a role for the commission, you know, in that work that can probably broaden that watershed scope. You know, it's just as you know, and when this discussion occurs, it's not going to be me, but as the division manager and the steward of the Clean Water Fund, you know, I have a responsibility to ensure that those funds are getting used in accordance with what the code requires. Now, the council could expand the scope of that code. It's in their purview to do that. You know, that is something that could be part of a discussion that you have with the council in terms of what the role is.
Since the Public Works Department has multiple components, including a noxious weed division, just as an example, couldn't the scope of this commission extend to aquatic weed control recommendations? The funding wouldn't come out of clean water, it would come out of some other source, but it would still be within the purview of this commission to make maybe broader recommendations for watershed health than simply being tied solely to the Clean Water Fund itself.
I mean, that specific example that, and I don't know enough to be sure, but there is a noxious weed board. Their purview is under state law. So for the state listed noxious weed species, there may be some limitations or something like that. But that certainly doesn't mean that you as a commission couldn't interface with that board and make recommendations that are, you know, clean water driven. And we actually use that program as a service provider to keep weeds and manage vegetation in our infrastructure. So we pay them to go do weed control in our infrastructure.
Do they deal with aquatic weeds as well as terrestrial?
They currently, I'm not 100% sure. They certainly don't do it themselves. I don't know, because their primary role is enforcement, right? They go to private landowners and say, you have this weed, here's what you need to do about it. And I don't know if they do that for aquatic weeds or not. You know, it's driven by agricultural concerns.
Yeah.
But it also, there's an aquatic weed component. I'm only aware of this because the Department of Ecology gave the county a $25,000 grant about 3 years ago to develop an aquatic invasive control management program, and that's now a official plan on the shelf. So it's there. It's a question of, I guess how it gets funded and how it gets done. But it's actually been completed, so it's part of the weed board's purview.
That's interesting.
That I think kind of leads into part of my thoughts is latter part, especially about the annual report, is really about the stormwater program. Earlier in this code section, it talks about the commission representing a balanced interest in storm and surface water treatment regulation, and the commission making recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners, which we don't have anymore. We now have the County Council, on such matters as the focus of the Stormwater Management Program, program service levels, financing, and policies on surface and stormwater issues. So in a couple places in here, it mentions surface and stormwater issues. A lot of the annual reporting stuff, the NPDES program, the fees, a lot of the most, if not all, the revenues are really around stormwater. But part of the charge of the Clean Water Commission is also to deal with surface water. So I think historically we've probably focused a lot on stormwater and the capital part of it, and not so much on, basically a kind of a watershed management approach, or looking at what the county's policies or decisions or authorities mean for surface waters. It's been very, where's the stormwater off of highways or stormwater out of unincorporated areas going, our public stormwater treatment facilities being maintained and so on. So there's on the stormwater side, we've had some questions about, well, what's happening with the HOA or otherwise private stormwater treatment facilities, with a couple of big examples like the one near Lacamas Lake where they're not functioning or they're not maintained. But we haven't really done a lot with what's going on with surface water and how our county decisions, county government decisions, or lack of decisions impacting surface water quality. And so the one that always leaps to mind for me is decisions on development. They have an impact on surface water quality. If you're going, and shallow groundwater quality. If you're going from, kind of old, little used pasture to subdivisions where people are going to use a lot of lawn chemicals, there is an impact there from the extra phosphorus loading, from the extra herbicide and insecticide loading, and so on. But we've never really looked at that. And I see it, not this part here, but higher up when it's talking about the commission looking at surface water issues and making recommendations to what would now be the council on stormwater and surface water. We have just really focused on kind of taking a quick look at stormwater, but we haven't, I think, really dug into what's going on. How does the decisions of the weed board affect stormwater and surface water quality? How does the planning commission's recommendations and zoning decisions impact surface quality? There was just a hearing about the Zimberley quarry out near my place in Washougal. We didn't do anything, have a stance on that, didn't really talk about it. But it's right over a branch of Gibbons Creek, and
right where there's Steigerwald.
Right across from Steigerwald.
Completed, yeah.
More importantly, the landowner and the operator have both had persistent water quality violations, including not having the permits they need to operate legally.
And now it's a salmon.
Yes.
Yeah. I know other organizations have drafted something to the county just to ask for a review.
Yeah. So in the first half of this code, that's kind of within what we should be looking at, making recommendations about. In the annual report part of it, that language there seems to indicate pretty clearly that's about the stormwater program. So I don't know how we want to handle that, whether we just go to the council and say, you should just make a stormwater advisory committee, because that's all we're doing, or if we want to look at, well, do we want to expand on it and start digging into
not just stormwater, but surface water quality in general and how county decisions affect that.
Okay,
And
those are good points.
And I do think that's really something that the commission needs to decide. I mean, if we're happy with the idea that we just want to oversee stormwater activities and we don't want to look at beyond that for the basic watershed issues in the county, then that's one thing. I know that I personally would favor not doing that. I want the broader perspective. I understand Brent's concerns, and if I were the project manager, I don't want these nuts committing my budget to something that's going to get me in trouble. But by the same token, there's nothing that says that anything we would do here as a commission necessarily obligates the division's budget in any way, shape, or form, nor probably should it. It's a matter of what the commission responsibility is. When I read this too, is much broader than just the clean water division.
Yeah, my only concern is just that, not that the role itself would have a budgetary issue, other than the financial support that we give this body. That, you know, if there's, depending on how that balance is, we may need to ask the council to provide some other funding for part of the operation.
Support.
It's not a lot of money, but more, I'm thinking more about the types of recommendations that might come out of a commission with that purview, and making sure that the council understands that if they're going to move those recommendations forward, they may have to come up with other sources of funding to do that. You know, that's...
Yeah, I think kind of to tack on to what Bob said, I mean, there's a big difference between a recommendation and policy. And, you know, I'm not under the idea that I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, that the council's ever going to make us a policy-making body, but there's a big difference between recommendations and policy. So recommendations, as we sit now, the council and you can do with it what you want, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, and anybody chime in here, I don't think anybody else is thinking that we're going to be making policy. I know some of us would like to, certainly, but I think it's a good question that Josh and Bob have. Is, you know, so we have to just, and that's part of the conversation here. What is it that we want to do, and then we can certainly talk about what that next step is. Roger.
I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it from an organizational standpoint. If we are going to be stormwater, surface water, groundwater, whatever, that's one thing. But if we're taking a look at it in an ecosystem, as a watershed process, as a county process, how do you organize our vision of what we're doing? Do we take it, okay, this week we're going to deal with X, this month we're going to deal with X, this year we're going to deal with X, and take a look at, are you going to take a look at it watershed by watershed, or are you going to take a look at it as process and get inputs from all of the different areas? I'm having a trouble myself getting my head around the complexity of what clean water means in a geographical area, and organizing a body like this to look at it from both a policy standpoint and a non-policy standpoint, because we're supposedly making recommendations to those who
make the policy,
who spend the money.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a little bit rambling.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm a systems person. I mean,
yes,
ecology live within systems. You'd use a key word, complexity. I mean, it's challenging when we're trying to silo it into stormwater management in Clark County and how that affects a watershed. Because what they do in Skamania County affects, you know, in our streams and lakes as well. So it's, you know, it's challenging. And we're all probably thinking on the larger scale, but we also have whatever this ends up being, only a limited scope within geographic boundaries.
This is a real educational process for all of us And I'll show you one small example. I've been working for the last 3 years on cyanobacteria in the Lacamas watershed. And as I travel up the Columbia and start looking at all those little lakes on the north side of the Columbia in the late summer, they're all full of it. So how do we take and expand that look to cover a broader set of watersheds? Looking at Lacamas as a model is one thing, but looking at the entire county is completely different.
It is, yeah. So I think it goes back to the question of what we as a body actually see our role, or what we would, I guess, we'll stop there. What do we see as our role? Is it, like Josh brought up, is it just, I mean, stormwater, capital projects and infrastructure within the county, or is it surface and surface? Is it something larger? I mean, what is that?
Well,
Now we have a bunch of new members, so it's your chance to help shape the future.
yeah, and like stormwater and our ecosystem more broadly are intrinsically linked.
Yeah.
You know, what happens with stormwater affects what happens with rivers and streams and lakes. And so it's really hard, I think, to disentangle those two items. I think it's kind of restrictive in a funny way to think that we can only talk about stormwater without talking about the effects
I agree,
of how we handle stormwater.
I agree.
And then also I have a question. So we're talking about recommendations to the council, and then that's, you know, how policy is made. So in the past, what have these recommendations looked like? You know, the first place that my mind goes is, you write a white paper. You do the research, you pull in the articles, you get a case study together, and you write a white paper. But what is it, and that's what I've seen before for recommendations, you know, you research it.
Yeah, I guess Josh and I are the only ones here to be able to answer that, so Josh, go ahead. I'll defer to your tenure as
Oh, no.
being the longest serving member.
Give me a second here, so I'm not too cynical. I mean, I don't think we've done a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
The annual report has been, you know, has sort of described our activities, but it hasn't really been full of recommendations that have real teeth to them and that are based on digging in and collecting information. And something we really haven't done is go to the clean water staff and say, hey, we need whatever info you've got or whatever summaries you've got on subject X and subject Y, and then, you know, package that up, make some recommendations, and put it in front of the county council. Like, we haven't done that kind of stuff. You know, the annual reporting here is pretty much covered by your annual report to ecology. So,
Right, because it's addressing some of the things that are, the metrics that are in the code.
because that's about stormwater. And our annual report, since I've been here, has been about more than stormwater, but it's been, from my perspective, lighter on substance, and certainly very light in terms of really concrete recommendations that would make a material difference to water quality and watershed health in the county. I don't know, hopefully I'm capturing it without being.
Yeah, without
being too negative.
No, since my time here, we really haven't, any recommendations that I can't really recall have certainly not been deep or far from white papers or even looking at any data to provide evidence of anything.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is, you know, you don't have a staff that you can dedicate to generate that information that goes beyond the stormwater side, which is what we do. Right. The other thing is that I think it's incumbent upon my program to bring things to you and ask you for input and recommendations. And that hasn't happened very much, at least over the last few years. I don't know how, you know, going back. But that's definitely something that I've thought about. You know, like, you know, if like we're bringing forward a proposal in next year's budget for additional staff, that's the sort of thing that I should be bringing to you to present to you why we're asking for those positions, asking you for a recommendation of support that we can put in our budget package to help, you know, have more credibility in our request. You know, we're doing, this is a wider effort. I don't know how much of a role there would be for this body, but, you know, we're doing a fund balance policy, which has never been done before. I mean, Public Works is doing it for all of their major enterprise funds, roads, parks, and, you know, it's being driven by the auditor's office and you know, basically fiscal responsibility. But that's going to drive a lot of you know, future decision-making in terms of when we need to start talking about revenue, you know, what extra funds we might have to do something that's not in our normal work program and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so 3 points kind of related to what you were saying, Brent, and I guess for the benefit of those folks who are newer, there's been a constant rotation of people in Brent's position who are in Brent's position that have rotated through as the program manager. Josh, how many? There really hasn't been. There's only been one permanent.
Yeah.
And that person was only permanent for less than a year.
Yeah, there's been a lot of acting.
Yes.
In the role.
Yeah. So and it's in the annual report. So I think that's definitely part of the issue is that there's related to my second point, which is you brought up earlier, is support. That if we go in however we define this, it sounds like we're asking for support. We all give a lot of our own time, but they're still going to require the county to give us something. And my understanding over my time here, or at least my feeling, I should say, is that it have a hard time keeping the lights on, let alone supporting us coming in and asking questions that require data or some time to dig through policy and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's what I see too, and I think at our last meeting or one of the others, you brought up what I call workload analysis, and the idea that operation and maintenance continues to grow as the county continues to grow, and your budget needs to grow at least in concert with that. And like most organizations, the operation and maintenance budget eventually will far exceed your ability to sustain it. And so you have to lay the groundwork at some stage, and it seems to me the commission sort of got this binary sort of charge. One is to support and help you achieve things like that, help do a workload analysis, help understand what it just takes to keep the lights on and keep things running. But then I do think this commission does, initially anyway in the code, have this much broader charge too that goes beyond the stormwater treatment into the health and welfare of the watersheds in the county. And in that regard, I don't know that the division so much is the group that's responsible as much as we ourselves are. And one of my examples of that would be that although it's in its fledgling effort, and one of the reasons I have enjoyed working with Roger towards this Lacamas Lake thing is, what are the kinds of things that the commission can do that will have a chance to do something constructive for watershed health, which don't require some great input or effort on the division's part, but can actually serve to maybe break down some of these silos that we're talking about. I think that's one of the frustrations in the county as a whole is there's a lot of players, but there's no clear communication between them. But it seems to me that as a county commission, that's one of the things we really should be on top of, that we should be facilitating this interchange between the various groups that are actually responsible for aspects of this. So I guess I do see this as kind of a binary type charge. Like you say, maybe that's something that we need to have reaffirmed by the county council at this point in time. But if it worked that way, I can see where we can do a lot of constructive things that don't really require a huge funding request. Although later on here, I'm going to bring something else up that I do think that we do have a charge to try to improve the funding that's available to us in a whole variety of areas, and that one of the things this commission can do as well is to politically advocate for funding for either specific projects or for things that we believe are important to the health and well-being of the watersheds in the county.
Okay. So, yeah, Roger.
That brings up a very interesting thing. As I was redoing that draft that I put out, I said, okay, I'm gonna need a minimum of X number of dollars to fund this thing, to make it work. And I haven't the foggiest idea where those funds are going to come from. So.
Well, you like to bake, so, I mean, answer seems really clear to me. Bake sale.
And I've never known of a program that this organization has had that have any kind of funding behind it. So, and this one, if we make it run, probably is going to have a wee bit of funding behind it.
Yeah, I would think so, if you're providing a lunch,
And facilities.
and facility, yeah, unless you can find someone to donate it.
And some in kind, yeah.
Well, that I think we should talk about when we get there, because
Okay.
that's the kind of way
Okay.
to set that up.
So maybe, and we'll get there, so let's maybe put that in the parking lot just momentarily. It sounds like, to me, that the group that's present here is interested in the commission taking on having a broader role than just stormwater. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, just making sure. So it sounds, Brent, that maybe our next move would be to speak with the county manager to sort of start, to get feedback.
I think I would suggest your first move is to really define where you would like to go,
Okay,
okay? And make sure that you can express that clearly.
okay,
And, once you have that, I think, then the conversation, I'm just trying to think how.
so what would that?
Have that conversation with the county manager, because, normally these kinds of things, come to council in a work session. I think if I was going to initiate a conversation with the county manager, I have to move that up through public works management structure, get the director on board with having that conversation.
Okay.
So, that might be the first step. Once you have that, that direction defined, then, if I'm still here, I can start that process, or whoever's next, I can make sure it's on the list of things that I give to them, to bring that to the public works management and say, this is something we want to bring forward with the county manager. There's some interesting things here with the charter structure now. Some of this role, you will be advising the county manager versus the council, right? Anything, probably most of the stuff related to our program, your recommendations are probably, other than maybe budget, financial recommendations, are probably to the county manager, because the county manager has the authority to make those operational decisions.
We don't see any of that. That is kept behind the hedge of one's teeth. It's not out there. We don't know. Way it was explained is we have a direct link to the county council.
Well, and when the commission was created, that's how it functioned. The council had all of that authority. The commission, its predecessor, had all of that authority. They were responsible not only for the policy and the legislation, they were also responsible for the day-to-day operation of the county. And the charter broke that link, and now the interesting thing is the county manager still goes to the council and gets permission for a lot of those things. But legally, legally, the county manager is a decision maker on a lot of this operational stuff. Unless it's a financial question, then it definitely is in the council's purview.
So it seems to me maybe then, before we talk about fine-tuning the mechanism, is to actually get the thing together. And that's the idea, the scope of what it is that we're proposing. And whoever that goes to, Brent, would that be in a form of us drafting a revised code, or would it be something deeper, a deeper document?
We would draft the revised code. We would get your input, and then we would take that forward to the council.
Yeah.
We would have a work session, and they would tell us how we want to engage the public in making that change, to what extent, and then we would go through that process and then bring it back to them for an adoption.
So I'm thinking that the first step is that we need to sort of draft something, though.
Right.
Something.
Right.
Yeah. To give, at least to give to you.
Yeah, and what I envision is a joint work session between the staff and the commission to have that first discussion about what your vision is and what the proposed code changes are.
Okay. Does anybody have any feelings about this?
I guess I'm unclear why you think the division and the commission have to start together with this, in that I still see this as sort of a two-step process, that particularly the funding and whatnot, the financial parts of the code are certainly something I don't think the commission as a whole wants to be involved in the revision of that. Seems to me that that's pretty straightforward and it's been ironed out, and that's something
right. I'm just talking about this particular section that defines the commission and what the commission's purview is.
Okay, and then, yeah, I have no problems that certainly at least a representative from the division or representatives from the division and the commission should sit down and draft something up they think that is appropriate.
Yeah, it's just legally, code processes.
Right.
Technically, it's community planning's authority. For these types of codes, they delegate that authority to the experts, and have us take those
Okay.
forward.
Okay. But so do we feel as a commission that we should have some sort of document before this work session, or should we come together as a group with the staff to do this together?
You don't write papers around the table. You write papers all by yourself, and then you get other people to review them and make the changes. This is going to have to come from us, and we'll go back and forth until we get something on board.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Anybody else? Don't.
I think we need to at least, as a commission, get together at least the idea, where do we want the commission's charge and direction to go, and then get help, and then find out what's feasible from county staff and what's, legal within county authority, and get it into code language. But I think we need to, at the very least, figure out what it is we want to be doing and what we think the role of the commission should be, and then translate it into code.
Okay. Any additional?
And how do we proceed then? Would you suggest that we all take a shot at this? I don't see that.
I was actually gonna ask how everybody felt about a couple of volunteers, because we talked last time about these projects that would come up, and rather than having standing groups, a couple of people or more, 3, as long as it's not a quorum, obviously, that come together and can send that out to the larger group for those phases of review, but obviously relying heavily on those individuals that volunteer. to do this.
Good sense to me is to have a few
Okay.
people get together and put a draft together and then give it to the rest of the commission for comments.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea.
And when we get to the point where the commission's comfortable, we fold in the division staff and say, this is where we're kind of thinking we ought to go now. Tell us what we need to do to make it work with you guys, and let's get a product that lets us all go together.
And I think that saves the division staff a lot of work.
Yes.
Right.
Because otherwise they're at risk of the old penguin game where we just keep telling them, not that rock, bring us another rock.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about this next year and the
Yeah.
year after, and yeah, I agree. So, I guess maybe our next step is to ask for volunteers. Anybody really passionate about taking this on? What do you think about three people, Bob? What do you think?
Three, I think, would be
Three?
good.
Okay, were you raising your hand to lead that charge?
This is something that's
Okay.
near and dear to my heart.
Oh, wow, passion, great. All right, so we have Bob. Bob is, let the record show, signed up to lead this group. Roger is either dipping his toe in the water or. Okay, one other.
I'm glad to volunteer.
All right, great. One of our new commissioners. That's fantastic. Okay, so we have Ted, Roger, and Bob who are going to draft something. That's up to you regarding our role as the commission, and bring that. What do you think? What are you thinking about on a time? Would it be at our next meeting, or would there be some in between?
I think
email?
we can have a draft by the next meeting. I don't see that
Okay.
in this language.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not something that needs to drag on.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, and I particularly like Josh's comment about the fact that the term surface water is already in here, and was actually in here, I guess, from the beginning of when the code was actually written. Which sort of gives us an imprimatur that we do have a broader role than just purely stormwater overseers. And I think that's what we need to kind of work off of. It's already there, it's just how do we define it more clearly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so will the process be developing a draft and then sending it out to the group, and then we all have a chance to review it and sort of develop comments and then discuss it, or
Yeah.
like through, okay.
I think so. Is that what you were envisioning, Bob?
Exactly.
Okay, yep.
And in order to prevent doing an accidental quorum, then Bob and Roger and Ted would need to send it to Alice, and then Alice distributes it
Okay.
to the commission, and we don't reply all. Like, this is, I'm kind of lucky in that I'm on the fire commission for my fire district, and so we get very much schooled in this, but you can have a serial quorum or an inadvertent email quorum if you do reply all. So probably the best way to do this would be when you have a draft that the three of you are comfortable with, send it to Alice.
Okay.
Or send it to all of us, and then none of us reply all, but we can just be ready to discuss it
Okay.
at the June meeting.
All right.
It's going to be a very novice question. What's the forum?
We were talking about the
Yeah.
technical definition of that earlier. I actually didn't see it anywhere, so we're assuming it's the majority,
In the
right?
public meeting rules,
All right.
it's
Oh, okay.
it's a majority of a body that.
More
is
present than
subject to
absent,
Public meeting regulations in the state it's a public meeting if a quorum is interacting together. So then it's subject to all the open public meeting rules.
And it has to be properly noticed
Mhm.
beforehand. Is it 24 or 48 hours notice at least?
I'm not sure what.
There's a public notice requirement.
Yeah.
If I want to go out with
Mhm.
Matt and Brendan.
If we're gonna go see a movie? Or...
Yeah, that's fine, but if Matt and Brendan and I invite Bob and Roger, then we just messed up.
Yeah.
So sorry, Bob, you gotta stay home.
No commissioner group.
Yeah.
Dinners, I got it.
It's gotta be, it's really hard if it's a body of three, because then they have to avoid each other at the coffee shop. I've seen it with the Camas Washougal Port Commission.
That's how it used to be with the county commission.
Yeah.
As staff, we used to have to be very careful about how we interacted with them, because if we were interacting with more than one at a time.
Or these meetings in the hallway, or just running into each other and start talking business in the hallway can get you into trouble real quick.
And so you should also keep that in mind for any events where you're inviting other entities that are subject to those same
Mhm.
requirements.
there is an exception for purely social events.
Oh.
For elected officials. It doesn't necessarily create an open public meetings problem. If it's purely social, and no business of.
And you don't talk about it.
And they're elected, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it could be elected or appointed, I mean.
Okay, all right, that's, yeah, okay,
We're also-
You can't talk business.
okay.
And since the only topics of conversation I have is gardening, kids, and water quality. Trouble for me.
Okay. All right, sounds like we have a plan moving forward. Does everybody feel comfortable with that? That we're oh, great, fantastic. All right, I'm trying to get to my agenda here. Under the unfinished business, so we have here strategic planning and a sub-piece of work groups. And I think the conversation last time, going back to what we were just talking about, is do we really need these three standing work groups that we have? You know, maybe there's something a little bit more ad hoc like we just did. I know Sandra last time talked about, you know, we always keep tabling environmental justice, I think for 2 years, if not more. It kind of was, let's table it, maybe that becomes a specific work group. Sandra's not here, so I don't want to maybe talk about that, but without her input. But maybe talking about the work groups, do you, and I guess I'm looking at Josh, we've been here, I haven't really seen any benefit, honestly, other than we were just doing them to do them.
Yeah, that, I feel like I'm talking a lot tonight.
That's good, yeah,
the
great.
risk you guys all run when I show up in person. Yeah, the work groups haven't done a lot.
Yeah.
You know, the research work group that I, you know, quote unquote took charge of, and then Bob and I met once, I put together a draft document, and then, you know, we just didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
All of last year. And that's been my experience with the work group structure. Anyway, it's so nebulous as far as what they're gonna do, that there's the outreach work group has, you know, turned in some appearances, made some recommendations, gone to, you know, events and helped put the word out a bit, but they're really just kind of a citizen supplement to what water division staff are already doing. So I think it just hasn't been productive, and since it's not really producing much in the way of results, keeping to it just because it's already there, I don't think there's value to that.
It was COVID food.
What's that?
It was COVID food.
It was COVID food, yeah.
Well, I mean, my experience is, but perception is very similar.
Yeah.
Is that we just, we met for the sake of meeting. We talked about stormwater related stuff, surface water related stuff, watershed stuff, and then chewed up a lot of time in meetings, in our meetings here. Not really talking about, just reporting back about not doing much.
Well, I would point out that the meeting minutes that we've just approved this afternoon or this evening struck this from the bylaws.
Right, yeah.
And so we, I think, are already on record as having taken a
Position.
on this
Yep.
position.
Okay, yeah.
And that we've done these in.
Yeah, and I think the bylaws still, what we haven't struck out, clearly state that we can, don't have to, can create work groups as needed.
Which we have just done.
Which we just did, exactly. So, does everybody feel comfortable with that? Okay, just making sure. All right, excellent. Next piece is the watershed workshop planning. So Bob and Roger, I'm going to look to you since you've been doing most of the work, all of the work on that. I did send out a draft of Roger's agenda, I should say, just so you have it. So Roger, Bob, you want to?
Well, I'll start off with a preface in that I think one of the things that was my song and dance as a new commissioner was that I did want to see us become more actively engaged in trying to do constructive things, and that I understand the division's concerns that we involve ourselves in such a way that we either obligate division funds that they weren't prepared to obligate, or to, I think it was stated, to put the county in a leadership role in what's going on in the Lacamas watershed right now and the attempts to improve it. But I think what Roger's point was to me early on was that we could play a role as facilitators, which I do think we as a commission actually can see as one of our future jobs as well, and facilitate the coordination across these couple of silos that are currently engaged in work in Lacamas. And at this point, I'll defer to Roger, who's much more knowledgeable about the specific case, other than to say, to me, I thought it made sense for the commission to sort of sponsor an effort to try to bring these groups together.
Yeah, I've done this before, and in a past life, I did it a lot. You have somebody who's going to talk about this, you're going to have this symposium, and you put people in a group, and they all start talking, and nothing comes out of it. And what we found years ago was if we come to a group like that with some kind of a draft agenda, something positive that you can do, everybody says, oh, no, we aren't going to do that, but we're going to do this. And so you modify it as you go. And it's essentially a set of talking points that allows a development of a process. And if you'd like, I'll go through what I've done and put it together so that you'll see how that works. Is that okay? All right. I had to give it a name. I gave it a Lacamas Watershed Symposium. Timing, September and October, and we talked about that, and the fuss about not having a date is one, location, and two, the schedules of some of the people that might come. So having that said, let me talk about how this thing is structured. You start, coffee, hugs to, guys and gals you haven't seen for a while, and there will be a few of those who will come. And typical meeting process of, coffee and donuts if you feel like it. All right. I gave each group an hour, 45 minutes to talk, 15 minutes for communication, questions and answers, and all that sort of thing. I wanted to start with NOAA and the Phytoplankton Monitoring Network because Jen Muncher will be here, and she is the head of all the freshwater monitoring for cyanobacteria. All 5 species, we have 6 of them in Lacamas, but primarily the 5. And she's the one that goes around and fusses with each of those groups, and she works out of South Carolina. And she's been here before. She actually did her training a little over a year ago, and she's going to be here in October. And I don't know the precise date yet. And she is a powerful speaker and can really give us a picture of water quality nationwide. She probably could get her hand around worldwide, but nationwide she has it. And she has something like over 100 stations that are doing the phytoplankton monitoring network process like we're doing on Lacamas itself.
What's your confidence level that she will agree to come to an event like this while in town?
If it meets her schedule, and her schedule is right now it's flexible, and she'll be there.
Okay.
I mean, she likes us because we do quite well in Lacamas, and we do a good job, and we report weekly and all the fine little things, and she likes us, and she'll be here, and she knows she's coming to the West Coast in October, and I don't know what her dates are yet because I wasn't the one who spoke to her.
Okay.
And I wanted to have this conversation before I did. And give her 45 minutes, 15 minutes for fuss, circles and arrows and pictures and all the rest of it. For the second hour, I would have DOE. And I say that because they are Washington State controllers. And what's her name? Dang it. Stroke did me in. I don't remember her name. But yeah. I've got her name, but she runs all of the cyanobacteria work in the state. And she was going to come last year and had a family fuss and she couldn't, but she could be there. And I haven't talked to her either. The next one is the Lochmas Watershed Alliance, and I don't really know those people. Eric does them extraordinarily well, but they have an awful lot to say about the entire county and the entire watershed, and they will want a part of that whole process. Lunch, and you can eat your lunch in 15 minutes or less, but lunch is also a very good network time. And if you have this thing at someplace like the Lodge, it has outdoor, indoor process, and everybody can get around and shake hands and fuss. And with politicians there, with commissioners there, with all sorts of mayors and whatnot, there's going to be a lot of that backslapping, handshaking, and hopefully smiles. You never know. After lunch, the city of Camas, who had Geofintech come and spend last year doing a lake management plan, they're going to want to have a part of that, and knowing a lake management plan is really kind of critical, and it is what controls their efforts as they're trying to clean up that lake. And so having Geofintech there, having Steve Wall and probably a few other fuzzies from Camas there doing it is really appropriate. They get 45 minutes and 15 minutes for questions and answers. The Lochmas Watershed Council, and this is getting, if you notice, this is getting focused down, and down. And the Lochmas Watershed Council has been monitoring Lochmas now. We're in our third season. We're now doing all 3 lakes. We're doing a mid-lake process, and we're starting to look at the watershed as a pilot this year. So we're going to have data to share. We're going to have pictures, circles and arrows, and all sorts of things. And we get 45 minutes and 15 minutes for questions and answers. And then an hour to put this whole thing together. One of the problems I saw 3 years ago when I started fussing with Lochmas was that finding out who's who in the zoo, who's talking to who, what programs are out there, what those programs look like, how what we're doing can inform this group, how that group can inform this other group. That is an hour that is extraordinarily well spent. You're done at 4 o'clock. The timing, I think, is September, October. And I got phone calls to make to 2 people to find out what their schedules are so I can put that together. But I think late fall is cool, and one of the reasons is there is still going to be a bloom around in September at least, and usually into October. It's all the cyanobacteria are breaking up in October, but they're still there, and they're still there in mass. And people, and we'll bring in microscopes. People can look at it and touch it. I mean, I taught science education, and I know if you get people's hands on this stuff and they can see it and work with it, you can sell an awful lot of apples. Because it really makes sense to them when they've gone out and they put a plankton net in the water and they look at all this stuff and they say, oh, wow, you guys are working with that stuff? Where's my rubber gloves? You know, that to me is an engaging day for all of the players, and it would make a heck of a lot of connections, and it would reinforce other connections. That's why the questions.
Well, I think there are a couple of questions. The first thing is, what do we as a commission do to facilitate this, assuming that we want to continue to do that? It seems to me it would be the commission's position to send the letters out to all the participants, do the official invitations. And then there is some finance here, although I'm not sure what finance there is. But does this require funding of any amount, really?
Well, if I pick up the phone and I call Steve Wall and say we're going to do this, are you going to chip in? And we just had the conversation with Don, the new city manager, about being collegial about this whole thing, because the Lackawanna Watershed Council doesn't have any money. And they say, oh, yeah, we're going to do something. So, you know, you guys can chip in on that, and they might want to ding you a little bit. I don't know how that works. I'm not a money body. But that kind of thing is there. The invitations to these people are both formal and informal. You've got to find out, are they available and how to coordinate that. And that is that's a process we will all have to get involved in. The whole business of organizing it and getting everything there, usually for something like this, it falls to if you do it at the lodge, they have all of the Wi-Fi and the presentation material and all that sort of thing, and they've got that done. But hosting the thing is really kind of important, and it would be something for us to do. And I don't know who wants to MC this thing, but that should be our position, our job, and doing all of the staff work that gets this thing done.
Yeah, I guess that's the question I have is, we just sort of did in our work groups, created our first work group to work on the charter thing. And it seems to me that this requires some kind of work group, some folks that are interested enough in this to make this work. And then it goes out under the auspices of the Clean Water Commission. And that's just a matter of, and obviously you're the key player here. I mean, how many, I don't know what I don't want to make any requests of the division to, you know, put you on the spot, but I went to your symposium, as did Matt. Eric's really good at this kind of stuff, and it would be helpful if he would be a player in it anyway and help them see a meeting of this nature. But
and wouldn't this fall under like his purview of outreach education? I mean,
it does. You know, if the focus is more on the lake, that gets a little further away from you know what our role is in this particular watershed. But if other partners in our outreach efforts are participating, I think it makes some sense. I mean, I'm going to have to shop this with Eric and with his with our you know, outreach and public information specialist, Eric's supervisor, to see to what extent we can provide that kind of support. Certainly, I would see that, you know, Eric could be a resource to advise your work group on, you know, do's and don'ts. I think that's definitely something that we can do. Yeah, you know, and then, you know, in terms of of, funding. My experience with, like, if there's the idea is to provide lunch. I know when I've run meetings in the past where the county is providing that, we have a very strict set of rules about tracking participants and providing a record of who attended, who was, we have to connect all those dots if we're doing that, which is, kind of a headache.
Yeah.
We've gone through this process before when we've had things like that. And generally, they sign up when they come in the door, and we provide one of those rolled sandwiches things, it's an informal lunch. There's no sit-down thing to it.
Yeah.
And they got a kitchen there. And it's really not that big a deal.
Well,
But
I think for his accounting it is, whether it's Snickers or whether it's a T-bone, sounds like it's.
Yeah, it's just, and I'm not saying that doesn't mean we couldn't do that, I'm just, we have some overhead with that. It's not a simple matter of saying, okay, we got this many heads, we're gonna go to this caterer and buy these box lunches and be good. It's like, we have to have a record of everybody that attended and, show that we didn't buy any more lunches than people that were there, and.
Yeah, and I'm constantly surprised at the cost of catering.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Roger, what about corporate or foundation sponsorship for this? Is that a possibility?
It is.
Make everything
easier. But that is not something that I'm very good at. If somebody is good at that sort of process, have at it, because.
Okay. I'll ask a couple of questions, but if anybody else has any connection in the network.
Oh, well, I have a question. No connections, just a question. And so for the ideal audience for this event, are you thinking that it would be like, you send out an event that people sort of get tickets for, that they don't cost money, but you get like the tickets for ahead of time? Or is it something that's more open to the community? Is it something that you'll advertise, or I shouldn't say you, that we would advertise?
Well, we have to.
Oh, thank you.
We're all there.
Well,
there's the basic legal piece, yeah. But,
and like how far reaching
right, yeah.
is, like how big of an audience would we be expecting? I love your lineup. I think it would be really great also to, see if there is somebody who works in water quality at the county who could really help to bridge that, to bring it all together and make those connections. I think that meetings like this are really effective. Like when I was in grad school, we would have research symposiums focused on the Clark Fork River, and we'd have, people from all different branches of government, from the federal government, from the EPA, from state government, from county, city, and it was really effective, just inspiring about how you can move forward with these projects. So I think it's a really useful way to do that. So, yeah, I guess that's who's our audience? Who's our target audience?
When we have done these things before, we've had all sorts of different when we've limited it just to us, we'll put 25 people in the lodge, and we do just fine. When we have a workshop where the city comes, Geosyntac comes, Eric comes, a bunch of other people come, we'll have 100 to 115 people in there. I don't know what the commission would like to do for them, because you put that together and you are building a network. You are taking and who are these people that are coming? What do they bring to the table? And what role can they play later on? And there's going to be all sorts of people that are making presentations there that want to have some of that. So I don't know the answer to that, and that's something that I think this group should talk about, because,
Roger, maybe related to that, one thing that I think would be helpful for me, and then if I'm talking to other people about it, is for the group, which I assume we're gonna have a smaller group deal with this, and you're gonna be leading it, to have the workshop goals up front. So it's really clear about what we want to accomplish.
mm-hmm.
Like, what's the value add of somebody spending money on this, say, whether it's the county or whether it's corporate sponsor, or, I'm not asking for it right now. I just, in the next.
Can we charge a registration fee?
Oh, I wouldn't. No. One of the things that I see, and is my chief goal on this, is the coordination, the conversation that coordinates all the players that you didn't even know existed. And so putting this together is very valuable. I know the Watershed Society will come, but they aren't that big. And they're all science guys and gals, a couple of engineers. So I mean, they're well up on all this stuff. And how much do you want to actually take a look at the environment that's there at this time? I don't know the answer to that either.
Well, maybe let's ask this question of the commission. I mean, how do you feel about this idea, first of all?
I like the idea, but I think the goal ought to be as much public outreach as possible. If we want to educate people about cyanobacteria, we have to understand what this does to our lakes, among other harmful algae. So I think the broader audience, the better. And how you go about advertising this, I guess, is one of the questions we should answer. But I don't think I would want to support something so narrowly focused. It's just a group of engineers, scientists, and associated followers who would be attending it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that a really important thing will be to make that connection between the scientists in our communities, the managers, and members of the public. Talk about having microscopes, and some of the coolest demonstrations that I've seen is when you show a kid phytoplankton under a microscope, and their mind is just like blown, and it's great. And I know that provides some issues. So from my understanding, if we were to purchase food through some kind of donation, that would reduce the roadblocks that we have in terms of accounting.
Well, I think that, there's a few questions I don't know the answer to. So, this commission is a county body. And so if somebody is making donations, and I have to figure out what that looks like and what potential headaches that creates. But if you have partners that could be the vehicle for that piece, if you can get sponsors, let's say, if you have a 501c3 partner that can be the vehicle to bring that sponsorship to the table, that gets the county out of that picture.
Yeah.
Her ticket thing is really critical. Your ticket idea, because you got to know how many bodies you're going to have on the floor. And the venue, having it at the lodge is cool, but I don't know how many people will fit in there.
Yeah, having been there with Bob, with that small, it fills up fast. It feels cramped quickly. So I guess that would be one concern I have for the venue with the group you're talking about, and then tacking on to what Ted said about trying to get as much outreach as possible. It felt cramped in there to me.
See, and
We didn't have that many people.
Things I wonder about too. I'm all for public involvement, but But it seems to me that the commission role was sort of to bridge the silos and get the various groups that are actually working on this issue together to sort of coalesce on what their future was and how to move forward more constructively. And I guess I envision the public input or education part of it to be by inviting Columbian and social media and things that we would put online and make available to a much broader audience. And they seem to be having pretty good luck with the local paper here lately, since their community funded, whatever they call that deal is going on. They seem to be covering events like this pretty well. And I think if we recruit them, get them to show up and write an article and put it in the paper about this, it might reach quite a few people. But regardless, like Matt, I did attend a symposium of similar nature that was kind of hosted by Eric anyway. And was that actually under your guise, or was that under one of his other umbrellas?
That was the Stormwater Partners, so it was all of the partner agencies, you know, they're all permittees, basically.
Right. So, that basically filled the room, and I would assume this would too.
Yeah, if you take, and I'm just roughly taking a look at the groups who would be coming, you'd have, if you were inviting the public in, you're going to need a bigger space than you could do at the launch. That's to me, that's a, because when we had just a evening seminar, you know, where you have the posters and the talking heads behind them and all the rest of that, they filled that place up, and people were coming and going, and, you know, I don't know how many people came. It was way over 100, and that place was full. So I don't know the answer, and I think that's something we're going to have to solve in the next.
So it sounds like maybe there's another small group here.
I would think it's going to take a work group to make this viable anyway, and come back to the commission with things lined out a little bit better
Yeah.
than we currently have.
So what we can do 4, yeah? Do I understand that correctly? 4 people safely? Not any, so Roger, obviously you're leading it.
Obviously.
Yeah. Bob, it sounds like you are already part of this.
Well, I feel an obligation to see if
Okay.
we can make it work on.
Okay, yeah. So, and 1 to 2 other people interested?
I'd be happy to join.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other taker? Room for one more if you want it. If you don't,
No one else dying to tackle.
you can jump on later. I guess there's room for one more.
Right.
Sandra and Brendan aren't here, so maybe there's some interest there too. So, okay. So sounds like we have another working task group.
I've got to ask this question. Do you guys, gals, like this kind of an idea for something that the commission is kind of ramrodding?
I mean, I like the facilitation aspect, like Bob. I see it as a facilitative mechanism. I don't, when I say what are the outcomes, I don't think they should be that we're going to mitigate the issue going on there, but moreover that we're educating, we're bringing people together. So I think that's beneficial.
That's my view of it too, and truthfully, part of my interest stemmed from I can't remember who the fellow was that came to talk to us about Burnt Bridge Creek and the impacts on Vancouver
community
Lake.
member, yeah.
And he made an impassioned plea and explained all of the issues at Burnt Bridge Creek, and Jeff and I share some association with that. And he goes through the whole spiel, and it's terrible. And our answer to this poor fellow was, yeah, but it's not our problem. And I thought, geez, you know, and it's true, the city of Vancouver's water folks really and truly drive the bulk of the issues around Burnt Bridge Creek. But Burnt Bridge Creek and Vancouver Lake are part of the Clark County watershed issues, and to just say, not our problem, see you around, wish you a lot of luck with this. I think, in my mind, that's what put this idea that one of the things a commission can do is help bridge these silos and sort of bring these various constituencies together and try to get all of the involved folks working in the same direction. Lacamas Lake was another one that seemed to bring this up, and so that's really what I see too, is we facilitate sort of coordination and communication amongst these silos and see if we can't do a little better job in overall watershed management.
I think that's really important, but the reason I brought up the idea of having a broader audience is because you need to build a constituency. If you're eventually going to be asking the public to contribute via taxes or fees for watershed cleanup or surface water cleanup. So there has to be a consensus there, and the only way you get there is by educating people and letting them understand problems and solutions. So it's, you know, it's kind of a broader question.
I agree, and I think that's, Brent, that's the thing we need to be a little bit careful of, right? So there's not the appearance that we're trying to drive the county alone.
Can I answer that?
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
or at least comment. Number one of the most powerful things that we have done as far as education goes is on that Thursday afternoon when the teams are out there on the water, on the shore, taking their samples. People come by, and you cannot believe the questions. A 10-minute set of samples usually takes them about a half hour, 45 minutes, because people come by and they talk. They keep their dogs out of the water now around there because when that bloom is there, they know that it gets on their paws and they go right down to the vets because it'll kill them, and it's killed a lot of them. The workshop that we had in the evening was very, very powerful, and it was designed to attract and educate the citizens. And it was advertised that way throughout the region, and we had all sorts of people come. This kind of thing is not designed to have a lot of public participation, because a lot of it's going to be highly technical and should be highly technical. And the kind of people that are coming are going to want to share the technical aspects of what's going on rather than the educational process. So I don't know if I said that well.
Well, I would hope it would be a start to bringing more and more people on board and support by more and more people, because you're right, Ted. I mean,
Yeah.
Eventually it takes a fairly broad-based support in order to bring about the constructive change that'll probably be needed to actually fix this. And I think in my mind anyway, this symposium more or less defines the direction and what's needed, and then that's your message that you go further out and sell the public in sort of stage 2 and try to build that broader constituency that you need. That makes sense.
Roger, I guess maybe the answer you asked from the commission, and well, I'll ask Alice to put this on for our next meeting to talk about this, is once the three of you get together and maybe formulate some of those objectives of what this is going to accomplish. You know, I always call it the so what.
Right.
Yeah, so what is this going to do? And maybe we come back with an idea, and then we can, when you ask that same question, is this something that we should be doing?
You want to know what's sitting back here in the back of my head? I want all of the political entities and the departmental entities from all of the constituents that walk in the door to realize that we're all in the same boat, and we're all paddling as hard as we can to get there, and that there are places to reach out to. They live in silos, don't you?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. And getting out of those, this is a silo-breaking kind of effort.
Yeah, I think I get the basic gist of what you're trying to accomplish, but just sort of speaking for the larger group, maybe having that measurable piece there, and then, you know, they get the breaking silos. I would say the one piece is, I mean, people live in silos, so there's sort of a self-selection bias here. I mean, the silos are going to be broken or barriers removed for the people that self-select to show up, right?
But that's how I wanted to.
So again, it's so what? What's going to be the sell for somebody to come? Lunch?
Yeah. I want to get Jen to be there, because she is good, and she runs this whole program nationwide from NOAA, and that's going to be a dynamite start to it.
Okay. Well, want to make sure we get to some new business if we have it. But so, Roger, thanks for all your work on this. We have, I think, our charge moving forward. You have your group.
Can I go ahead and start making arrangements, because getting everybody's schedules working early is critical.
I don't know, Brent, what do you have to do with the county so that we don't run afoul of something? I mean,
Well, I mean, I guess I need to know specifically which questions to ask, right? I mean, there's, you know, the financial piece of it for any financial support that might be asked for. But yeah, on the other part of it, it just, making sure that it's a facilitation. That's the communication of what role this commission is taking in this is a facilitation role. I think, I'm not seeing anything here that's giving me, concern in that regard.
okay. So, I mean, can Roger start, I guess, Roger, is your question, you could start asking people to volunteer their time?
Tomorrow and call Jan.
Yeah,
I need to call, the DOE.
Okay.
Maybe get the whole, find out what people's schedules are, see if I can put things together. I need to talk to Camus about the facility, if we're going to use that facility, and get things scheduled. And if I can get that schedule melded, then we'll have something to work with.
It seems to me that just making phone calls to see people's availability and the availability of a venue.
Your first two speakers, because they are the ones whose schedules are going to drive this.
Yeah.
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 And I think something else to consider is, if you're asking, you're asking, people to commit an entire day of their work time for this event. So, just be thinking about that, because that, that does potentially become a resource issue. It could, for instance, for our participation, it may limit the number of people that we, that we send. But, we can also, the earlier we have things nailed down, the easier it is to plan for that and to make more resources available. So,
okay. All right. So the three of you will figure out this going forward, and we'll excited to hear how it goes soon.
One more question.
Yeah.
I'm just a little confused. I love the concept. I love reaching out to the public, educating the public on all this. But I've heard public and I've heard scientific education, and I'm a little confused between the target audience. Is it really the public, or is this more technical and more like a university symposium type?
This one is going to be, and it was the way it was time. It is to get all of the players sitting down on in the same area and sharing and taking a look at what the programs are and the projects are and what's going on, from a national to a state to a local level, and all the players here. And it doesn't do that much for the guy walking his dog on the beach.
In other words, technical.
Technical and policy makers.
Technical and policy. Now,
Because educational,
yeah.
the venue's nice because you can point out the window and say, see, look.
Yeah.
And the microscope thing is great if you're outdoors or you're taking this in high school classrooms or something like that.
That is exactly what the Watershed Council does. And we have those. We work with Geosyntax, we work with the City of Camas, and we have those, you call them workshops, I don't know what you have to call them, but you have those meetings, and people come. Lots of people come, and we've done that. We'll do more of them, because that's an extraordinarily powerful local communication process. We work with the high schools, and they've got our microscopes, they've got all of our test gear, and they use them all year long. And we have a set that just for them, because they have a project, they want to do water quality, and they don't have stuff. And so we work with them and actually meet with them and do that. So we've got that education piece. Actually, it's our secondary goal in the Watershed Council. So, yeah, but the two are not all that compatible.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And they take different approaches.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so next item on our agenda, new business actions. Nothing listed under there. Any new business? Bob?
I had one issue I wanted to raise, and there are other people here that are probably more familiar with this than I, but there's a Lewis River project that has been proposed and that currently is going through the state legislature. The House, it's my understanding, there were 11 actual separate projects. The House approved all 11 for funding. The Senate only approved 10 and it left out the one project in Clark County. They approved the other 10 that are up primarily in Puget Sound. It's a large-scale project, and our county commissioners are already on record, I believe, in having written in support of this particular effort. It seems to me if the commission does have this broader sort of view and vision of itself as well, that we at least ought to go on record with our local legislatures via a letter written from the commission that is in support of the inclusion of the Lewis County project for funding as well, and we feel that it's important. And I don't know whether the other commissioners care to, or are knowledgeable on this stuff.
Yeah, I'm knowledgeable about it. It's the East Fork of the Lewis project, and it's reclaiming some abandoned gravel mining operations that have now become large sources of pollution and are blocking Andromeda's fish runs. So there's a lot of good benefit that could come out of this project. The problem right now is timing. The House and the Senate are in reconciliation meetings right now as we speak to talk about competing proposals that have come from either chamber. And so a letter from this body, if it's going to have any effect at all, needs to go out almost immediately. And needs to be directed to, I guess, all of our 17th, 18th, 49th district legislators. But, you know, the bottom line is time is not on our side right now. So.
Yeah, my understanding, so this is a Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership project, and they were floodplains by design, and I have an information sheet that I can send to everybody. Sounds like I need to send it to Alice. Is that right, Josh? And then Brent, maybe I'll copy you because Alice is out, at least for now. So maybe it's just a one-pager. Send to you just so if you don't have the information already. So as Ted mentioned, there was a testimony period, and we did go, as part of my other position with LSEP, we did go up to Olympia, talk to some legislatures, did some advocacy, The House hearing for that Budget Committee, Natural Resources, was the other Monday? Last Monday. So it's my understanding that window is really kind of closed, since they are in the reconciliation process. I mean, it never hurts to contact. That's a thoughtful comment right there, right?
My computer shut down and I just.
Are we in recess?
You're good now.
Okay. I can certainly reach out in the morning to LSEP's legislative liaison to see if there's any value added there, but as Ted mentioned, if there is, I mean, I'm guessing it would have to be drafted, signed off, and everything tomorrow, if.
Well, and I procedurally, because this is a county body, I'm not up to speed if there's policy about, I know as staff, we can't do something like that without the commission, the council blessing. But I can certainly look into that to make sure we know that answer if it's something.
For future
If the county employs a lobbyist, during the session, maybe that person could carry the message.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that would be the quickest way to do it. That maybe that's something you could check on. And I'm sure if the county council is really supportive of this project, they must have been in contact with their lobbyists. They must have been.
I would assume it's been on their legislative agenda.
Yeah, I know of 2 county councilors that have been involved in this, and I know early in the stages, Sue Marshall wrote an op-ed that appeared in the Reflector, saying either in December or January related to this. So I know she's had some involvement.
Yeah, I just don't, I mean, if we have to get that kind of approval, there's just no way it can happen, with.
Right.
But individual members of the commission could write.
Yeah.
Yes, as residents of your jurisdictions, you're free to contact your legislator as you see fit, I should say.
Well, I think it would be interesting to have the knowledge of what the process or procedure is and what our sideboards are on things like this. I don't know whether there's anything constructive we'll be able to do in this particular instance, but I would like to at least charge the chair with this one and figure out whether or not there's anything we can do. There is, I do think it would be good to do that. If we can't on this particular issue, at least let's get the pathway cleared out.
And I know that LSEP is still moving forward, at least with design and permitting, because we're getting asked to provide input to their staff on the processes.
Well, you can always be hopefully optimistic, right? I mean, so there were 11 projects, and the East Fork of the Lewis River was ranked as 11, and 10 projects in the Senate budget were funded. And I believe this is the sole project of the floodplains by design. This is the sole project in Southwest Washington.
It sounds typical.
But I will send the information sheet that I have to Brent, and Brent if you could please disseminate that to the rest of the group. Now, any other new business or?
I don't know if this is new business or not, but since Alice is not here, maybe I'll ask our veterans, I went to a webinar in February that had a really interesting stormwater-related subject on what's happening with coho salmon and tributaries in the Puget Sound area, and I thought this group might be interested.
I would be, yeah.
Is it proper protocol for me to send that to Alice, and then Alice in turn would distribute it to the board? Because I wrote her and I didn't get a reply back, so I wasn't sure what my options were.
Yeah, I mean, your other option for the future would be to share it in the context of one of these meetings. It's a public meeting. But outside of that, yeah, if you can send it to Alice or myself, we can distribute it.
Well, yeah, let's spend the protocols to send it to Alice, and she'll distribute it. It's also proper for one commissioner to email everyone else, and as long as there's no group replies, it's fine. So what we typically do on East County's Fire Commission, we'll just, you know, all caps, like an angry internet comment, or first line, do not reply all.
Yeah.
But it's the safest approach.
I mean, I've definitely
Both of them.
emailed something to everybody, but not expecting a reply, and
Yeah.
sounds like not
Safest
replying
thing.
is the safest
Yeah,
thing to
the
do.
safest thing to do is to send it to Alice and have
Yeah.
her distribute, but you could also send it to all of us and just do not reply all. And then
Yeah.
you can do it that way.
I'd be interested in seeing that, so. Okay, other new business actions? Okay, our next, I think it's similar, our next item is a roundtable discussion. I don't know if there's anything for the roundtable, the square table.
I think we've already gone around the table.
Okay, then, where were we at? 8:32, looks like, completed the agenda in its entirety and can adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you.
That was fast.
Yeah, it was.